From the earliest days I can remember, the air in our house felt thin around me. It was dense and warm, however, whenever my younger sister, Chloe, was near. I was Arya, the quiet observer, the older sister who learned to shrink herself to make more room for someone else's light. From the moment Chloe was born, a tiny squalling bundle who quickly grew into a radiant child with a cascade of golden hair and dimples that seemed to charm the world, I understood that my place in the family hierarchy was somewhere near the bottom. Love in our home was a spotlight, and it was always, without fail, trained on Chloe. I was 5 when Chloe arrived. The shift was immediate and profound. My mother, Eleanor, who had previously been competent but distant, transformed into a doting, almost obsessive stage mother. My father, Thomas, a man of few words with me, suddenly found an endless stream of doting commentary and proud pronouncements when it came to Chloe. Every milestone, no matter how small, her first tooth, her first crawl, her first clumsy drawing, was documented, celebrated, and performed for any guest who entered our home. Meanwhile, my own accomplishments, hard-won and deeply personal, were met with polite indifference or, worse, unfavorable comparisons. I remember spending weeks on a school project in 3rd grade, a detailed model of the solar system. I painstakingly painted each planet, measured distances, and wrote a report I was incredibly proud of. I brought it home, eager to show them. My mother glanced at it while helping Chloe with her simple craft project, a glitter-covered paper plate. "Oh, that's scientific, dear," she said, her tone suggesting it was slightly peculiar. "Not as charming as Chloe's art, is it? Look how creative she is with colors." My model was placed on a high shelf and forgotten. Chloe's glitter plate went straight onto the refrigerator, displacing one of my less charming drawings. These moments, small in isolation, built up like sedimentary rock, layer upon layer of feeling less than, of being unseen. Birthdays were a perfect microcosm of our family dynamic. My birthdays were modest affairs, a cake, perhaps 1 or 2 practical gifts. I turned 10 the year Chloe turned 5. Her birthday was a fairy tale, a rented pony in the backyard, a professional face painter, a bouncy castle, 20 of her friends, and a mountain of brightly wrapped presents. Mine, later that month, was a quiet dinner with immediate family and a new dictionary. My cousin Layla, who occasionally visited and seemed to possess a rare gene for basic kindness in our family, noticed my quiet disappointment. As Chloe unwrapped another doll, Layla slipped me a small, carved wooden bird she'd made. "It's beautiful, Arya," she whispered, her eyes genuinely kind. "Happy birthday. This stuff is silly anyway." That bird became one of my most treasured possessions. Layla, in her quiet way, became an infrequent but vital connection to someone who saw me. Chores were another battleground. While Chloe was busy with ballet, singing, and developing her creativity, I was responsible for a significant portion of the household labor. "You're the older sister, Arya," my mother would sigh, as if explaining the most obvious fact in the world. "You need to contribute more." Sacrifice. Sacrifice was a word used exclusively when speaking to me. I retreated inward, finding solace in books and excelling in school. My grades were impeccable, my academic achievements significant, but they garnered little attention. An award at a regional science fair received a brief, "That's nice, dear," before the conversation pivoted back to Chloe's lead role in the school play, a role my mother had aggressively lobbied for. It became clear that nothing I achieved, no matter how objectively impressive, would ever shine as brightly as Chloe's inherent existence in their eyes. The desire to escape, to build a life where my value wasn't constantly being measured and found wanting, became my driving force. Saving money was an obsession. Every dollar from part-time jobs during high school and college went into a separate account, earmarked for one purpose: leaving and never needing anything from them. My academic scholarship was my golden ticket, a way out that didn't require their financial support, which I knew would come with unbearable strings. Leaving was less a departure, more an extraction. On my 18th birthday, I packed a single worn suitcase. My mother was on the phone, discussing Chloe's college applications, even though she was only 13. My father was watching the news. I remember standing in the hallway for a moment, suitcase in hand, a strange mix of fear and exhilaration churning inside me. "I'm leaving now," I announced to the air. My mother waved a dismissive hand. Drive carefully, dear. Don't forget to send your new address. That was it. 2 decades of my life summarized in a perfunctory wave and a logistical instruction. There were no tears, no hugs, no "we'll miss you." Just the closing of a door behind me, a soft click that severed the cord. University was a baptism by fire. Financially, it was a constant tightrope walk, even with the scholarship. I worked library shifts, cleaned labs, tutored students, anything to make ends meet and add to my escape fund. But academically, I thrived. I chose software engineering because it demanded logic and clear outcomes, a stark contrast to the unpredictable emotional landscape of my childhood. My professors saw my aptitude, encouraged my work. For the first time, I was praised not for being cute or charming, qualities I didn't possess in their eyes, but for being intelligent, diligent, and capable. It was a different kind of validation, solid and earned. Years blurred into a demanding but fulfilling routine of work and saving. I got a good job after graduation, lived frugally in a small apartment, and poured every bonus, every raise, every spare dollar into my savings. My goal was simple: complete, unassailable financial independence. Then came the letter. Notification from an estate lawyer. A distant great-aunt on my father's side, a woman I barely remembered meeting once, had passed away. To my astonishment, she had left a significant portion of her estate to remaining family members. My share was $500,000. It felt unreal. Not money I had earned through labor, but money that represented an incredible acceleration towards my goal of absolute security. It was mine, unburdened by any history of manipulation or control from my parents. I invested it wisely, consulted financial advisors, treated it with immense respect. It wasn't just cash, it was freedom. It was proof that I could build a life that was entirely my own, on my own terms. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. I had friends, a successful career, a small but cozy apartment filled with things I chose. Contact with my family remained minimal. I sent holiday cards out of a sense of distant obligation. Their calls were infrequent, usually revolving around Chloe's latest exploits or thinly veiled attempts to glean information about my financial situation, which I kept deliberately vague. I was the independent outlier, the one who didn't need them, and I sensed this both irked and confused them. The call came on a Tuesday evening, jarring me out of my routine. My mother, her voice, tight with an unfamiliar urgency, asked if I could talk. "Arya, it's about Chloe. Something's happened. It's sensitive. Very important we discuss it." The vagueness, the insistence on importance, the focus on Chloe, all the familiar signs of impending drama, but with a new, sharper edge. A knot of dread formed instantly. They never called like this unless they wanted something big, or were in big trouble. I agreed to a brief call, my guard immediately up. The conversation was frustratingly circular, hinting at financial troubles related to Chloe and Julian's upcoming wedding, but never stating anything clearly. Just, "We need family to pull together, and Chloe's under a lot of stress." A week later, the formal invitation to Chloe's engagement party arrived. It was a thick, heavy card, embossed and gilded, announcing a lavish event at a prestigious country club. Tucked inside was a smaller envelope containing a handwritten note from my mother. "Arya, darling, we simply must talk before the party. It's vital. For Chloe's happiness, for the family. Please come. Don't be difficult. Just be my daughter, be Chloe's sister." The words dripped with manipulative nostalgia and barely concealed demand. My stomach churned. This wasn't an invitation. It was a summons with an agenda. I debated whether to go for days. My therapist suggested it might be healthier to decline, to protect my peace. But that stubborn part of me, the part that had always craved understanding or perhaps validation, felt compelled. I needed to know what this serious issue was, why they were suddenly pulling me back in after years of neglect. And honestly, a part of me was morbidly curious. I decided to go, steeling myself for the inevitable confrontation. I chose a simple, elegant dress that was tasteful but didn't scream wealth or opulence, a silent refusal to play their status games. The engagement party was everything I expected and dreaded. The country club ballroom was dripping with crystal and flowers. Guests, mostly affluent, circulated with practiced smiles. My parents were in their element, playing the part of the proud, successful hosts. Chloe was breathtaking in a designer gown, beaming, Julian by her side, looking a little overwhelmed but genuinely happy. I felt like an alien observer. My parents greeted me with forced smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Chloe gave me a brief, tight hug that felt more like a perfunctory obligation. Julian was polite, shaking my hand, his smile kind but preoccupied. Most guests either didn't recognize me or offered awkward, strained greetings. Layla, my cousin, spotted me across the room and gave me a small, sympathetic smile, mouthing, "Hang in there." It wasn't long before my mother found me near the back of the room. "Arya," she said, her voice low and urgent, pulling me slightly aside. "Your father is waiting in the library. He needs to speak with you." Urgently, her eyes darted around, ensuring no one was paying too much attention. The secrecy, the familiar request for a private conversation, the trap was being set. I nodded, my heart sinking with a familiar dread. The library was grand and quiet, lined with leather-bound books that likely served as mere decoration. My father, Thomas, stood by the large fireplace, his back to the room. He turned as I entered, his face stern. My mother slipped in behind me, closing the heavy double doors with a soft click that echoed ominously. We were isolated. "Sit down, Arya," my father commanded, gesturing to an armchair. I remained standing, facing them both. There was no point in pretending this was a casual chat. "We need to talk about Chloe," he began, cutting straight to the chase, mirroring my mother's earlier call. "And about your inheritance." My blood ran cold. The two topics linked. Just as I feared. My mother stepped forward, leaning against a heavy oak table, her arms crossed. "Arya, we've always wanted the best for Chloe. She's facing some difficulties." "Financial difficulties," my father clarified, his voice flat. "Significant ones. More than we can handle alone." He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "Your inheritance, Arya. $500,000. It's just sitting there, isn't it? Not being used for anything essential." The audacity stole my breath. "Not being used? It's my financial security. It's the only safety net I have." "Nonsense," my mother scoffed. "You have a good job. You live simply. Chloe needs it. They need it to start their marriage right." "Needs it for what exactly?" I demanded, my voice rising. "What kind of difficulties are we talking about that require $500,000 of my money?" They exchanged a look. A look of desperation and complicity. My father finally spoke, his voice low and tight. "Chloe, she's made some mistakes. Poor investments. Got involved with the wrong people." He avoided my eyes. The wrong people? My mind raced. This sounded far worse than poor investments. "What does that mean?" My mother stepped in, her voice taking on a pleading, manipulative tone. "It doesn't matter. What matters is she's in trouble. Serious trouble. This money, your inheritance, could fix everything. It could save her. Save us from a scandal. Save her." I was reeling. The vague hints, the urgency, the massive sum. It clicked into place. "You're not talking about a solid start. You're talking about paying off debts, aren't you?" "What kind of debts? Is Chloe in danger?" They didn't answer directly, but their silence, the fear in their eyes despite their attempts to look demanding, confirmed it. "And you expect me to use my inheritance, the money I gained completely independently of this family, to bail out Chloe from mistakes she made? Mistakes you clearly know about and are trying to hide." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The sheer entitlement, the manipulation, the decades of neglect all culminating in this monstrous request. "It's your family, Arya," my mother insisted, her voice growing shrill. "You sacrifice for family. You give when family is in need." "Sacrifice?" I echoed, the word a bitter taste in my mouth. "You want to talk about sacrifice?" "I sacrificed my childhood trying to earn a scrap of your attention. I sacrificed having a normal family life. You never sacrificed anything for me." Tears welled up, born of old pain and fresh outrage. "That money is mine. It represents my freedom from all of this. I will not give it to you. Not a dollar. Not a cent. My father's face contorted with rage. You selfish girl. After everything we've done for you, what did you do for me? I challenged, the years of silence breaking. You gave me a roof and ignored me. You gave Chloe the world and demanded I serve her. Get out, my mother shrieked, pointing at the door. If you won't help your sister, get out. I am leaving, I said, my voice trembling but firm. And I am not giving you the money. Don't ask again. I turned and walked out, leaving them sputtering in the library. As I re-entered the ballroom, the forced cheer of the party felt nauseating. I spotted Layla across the room. Her sympathetic expression deepened as she saw my face. Chloe saw me too, her smile vanishing, replaced by a look of cold fury. I didn't linger. I grabbed my coat and left the country club, the tension thick in the air behind me. The month between the engagement party and the wedding was an unrelenting barrage of pressure. It was a psychological war. My parents didn't just send emails. They were carefully crafted epistles detailing Chloe's supposed despair, Julian's stress, and how only my generosity could save them. They framed it as a moral failing on my part, citing religious platitudes about family. My father left aggressive voicemails, his voice laced with thinly veiled threats about consequences. They texted relatives, spreading their narrative, painting me as heartless and greedy. My cousin Layla, horrified, forwarded me some of the manipulative group messages my mother was sending, privately apologizing for her side of the family. Mason, my friend, helped me draft calm, concise emails explaining my position and setting boundaries, though the sheer volume of their attacks was overwhelming. I felt constantly on edge, nauseous with anxiety, but I refused to break. That money wasn't just money. It was my future, my safety, the culmination of my escape. Giving it up felt like surrendering my independence, allowing them to pull me back into their toxic orbit completely. Despite the harassment, I decided again to attend the wedding. Perhaps it was a foolish desire for closure, or maybe just refusing to be exiled. The wedding was held at an even grander venue, a historical estate with sweeping grounds and opulent interiors. Everything screamed old money, a desperate projection of status that felt particularly hollow knowing the truth, or at least, part of it. The atmosphere upon my arrival was glacial. My parents barely acknowledged me, their eyes flashing with resentment. Chloe was radiant, almost ethereal, but there was a brittle quality to her smile, a tension in her shoulders that wasn't bridal nerves. Julian looked even more stressed than at the engagement party, pale and preoccupied, though he managed a brief, polite nod in my direction. His parents, David and Maria Whitmore, refined and observant, seemed to regard my family with a subtle, almost imperceptible air of unease. Layla gave me a quick, worried hug and whispered, "Just be careful." I sat alone at a table near the back, feeling like a prop in a play I hadn't auditioned for. The ceremony was beautiful but felt like a performance. Throughout the reception, I kept a low profile, avoiding eye contact, acutely aware of the hostile energy directed at me. During cocktail hour, as guests mingled, my mother approached. Her face was tight, her voice strained. "Arya, your father." Near the cake. It was the same summoning, the same location near a focal point of the event. Dread turned to icy certainty. This was it. The final push. They were waiting near the magnificent, multi-tiered wedding cake, which sat on a large, heavy table. Beside it, as part of a decorative display that likely cost a fortune, was a heavy bronze statue of a classical figure, standing on a sturdy pedestal. "Arya," my father began, his voice deceptively calm, a chilling contrast to the fury I knew lay beneath. "We need to finish this. The time is now." "The answer is still no," I said, my voice quiet but firm. I met his gaze directly. "You don't understand," my mother pleaded, stepping closer, her eyes wide with feigned desperation. "Chloe's life, her future, everything is at stake. You have the power to fix it." "My power is to protect myself," I countered, refusing to be drawn into their panic. "I won't be blackmailed into this. Whatever mess Chloe is in, it's not my responsibility, and it's not fair to demand my life savings." My father's facade of calm shattered. "Fair? You think life is fair? We gave you everything. You gave me neglect and expectations. I shot back, years of suppressed anger finally breaking free. You gave Chloe everything and taught her she never had to face consequences. Is that what this is about? Covering up consequences you enabled. His face went purple with rage. How dare you speak to us like that? After everything. He looked around wildly, his eyes landing on the heavy bronze statue on the pedestal. Don't make a scene, Thomas, my mother hissed, perhaps realizing his intent a second too late. But it was already happening. In a flash of terrifying speed, my father grabbed the heavy statue. There was a collective intake of breath from a few guests nearby who had edged too close. He swung it back and then forward, directly at my head. All I saw was a blur of bronze, a flash of reflected light, and then an explosive white-hot pain. The sound was a sickening, dull thud. My legs gave out, and I crumpled to the ground, the polished floor cold against my cheek. Warm, sticky wetness immediately bloomed on my temple and dripped onto the pristine white surface. The world swam. Sounds became muffled. I heard screams, gasps, shouts. Someone yelled, "Call 911." I saw shoes rushing past, blurred faces. My head throbbed with agonizing intensity. Through hazy vision, I saw my mother standing over me, her face contorted not with concern, but with rage. You ruined it, Arya. You always ruin everything. Julian was suddenly there, pushing through the crowd, his face a mask of horror. He knelt beside me, his expensive suit instantly stained with my blood. Arya. Oh my God. And then, Julian stood up, turning to face the stunned crowd, his voice trembling but clear, amplified by the shock and fury of what he had just witnessed. You want to know why this happened? He shouted, his voice echoing through the suddenly silent hall. Because they're desperate. Because this entire wedding is a fraud. Chloe has a massive gambling debt. Hundreds of thousands of dollars owed to dangerous people. A collective gasp swept through the guests. Chloe, who had been rushing forward, froze, her eyes wide with terror, letting out a strangled cry. Her parents, Julian continued, his voice shaking, pointing at Eleanor and Thomas, who stood frozen, looking utterly exposed, have been trying to force Arya, the sister they've always ignored and abused, to give them her inheritance to pay off the debt. This attack. It's because she refused to hand over $500,000 to cover up their daughter's secret. Julian's parents, David and Maria, stood near the front, their faces pale with shock and absolute disgust. Maria covered her mouth with her hand. David's eyes were fixed on Eleanor and Thomas, a look of cold fury replacing his usual calm demeanor. Chloe stumbled forward, collapsing onto the floor near me, her beautiful white dress fanned around her, stained with my blood. She was sobbing uncontrollably, a raw, desperate sound. Sirens wailed outside, growing louder. 2 police cars pulled up, followed closely by an ambulance. Officers entered, quickly assessing the scene, me on the floor, bleeding, the distraught groom, the frozen parents, the shocked crowd. Mason, my friend Julian's colleague, was speaking clearly to an officer, pointing towards Thomas. Based on witness statements already being shouted and likely video footage captured by guests, Thomas was immediately arrested for aggravated assault. My mother, Eleanor, exploded in a torrent of accusations, screaming that I had attacked my father, that I was crazy, that it was all a lie to ruin Chloe. An officer calmly but firmly told her to stop speaking and placed her under arrest for questioning regarding the incident and the alleged coercion attempt. They were handcuffed, right there, in front of hundreds of guests who moments before had been celebrating with them. The crowd parted as they were led away, a stunned, silent tableau. Paramedics reached me, working quickly and efficiently. They cleaned the wound, bandaged my head, checked for other injuries. Julian stayed beside me, his face ashen. Arya, I am so sorry, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. I found messages on a burner phone Chloe hid. Loan shark texts. I confronted her this morning, demanded the truth. She finally confessed everything. Her debts, how deep it was, that they were planning to use your inheritance. She swore me to secrecy, begged me not to ruin the wedding. I didn't know what to do, and then he gestured to my head wound. Seeing them do that, I couldn't keep quiet. I had to. They're monsters. Julian's parents came over, looking devastated. Maria knelt beside me briefly. You are safe now, dear, she said softly, her eyes filled with genuine concern. David looked at Julian, his voice firm and unwavering. Julian, we are leaving. No. This is unconscionable. We will not be associated with such people. Julian nodded, his jaw set. He didn't look back at Chloe, who was still sobbing on the floor, surrounded by a few bewildered guests. The wedding was over. Utterly, irrevocably shattered. I was transported to North Shore Hospital by ambulance. Julian insisted on riding with me. The journey was mostly silent, punctuated by the siren and his occasional pain sigh. At the hospital, doctors confirmed a mild concussion and a deep laceration requiring 8 stitches. The pain was constant, a dull ache that radiated from the wound. An officer came to take my statement. I recounted the history of neglect, the demand for the inheritance, the escalating pressure, and finally, the attack. I named Julian, Mason, and Julian's parents, David and Maria Whitmore, as key witnesses. Julian visited me every day. He brought food, magazines, and a quiet presence that was more comforting than any words. He filled me in on the fallout. The wedding was, of course, officially canceled. Chloe was left humiliated and isolated. Even her bridesmaids had drifted away after the truth about the debt and the family's behavior came out. Her parents were being held, facing serious charges. The scandal was spreading. Julian was unequivocally done with Chloe and her family. He shared more details about the debt, how Chloe had fallen in with professional gamblers and loan sharks, how the debt was truly staggering, how her parents had known for months and had been secretly funneling money they didn't have, all leading to their desperate, dangerous plan involving my inheritance. The scar on my temple was a physical reminder, but the deeper wounds were emotional. The betrayal, the violence, the confirmation that their conditional love had been less than worthless. But Julian's unwavering support and the quiet, horrified reactions of people like Layla and the Whitmores offered a different kind of validation. Julian connected me with Gabriel, a lawyer in his parents' firm who specialized in complex civil cases involving family disputes and abuse. Gabriel visited me in my hospital room. He was sharp, compassionate, and immediately saw the strength of my case. He explained the charges we could pursue: aggravated assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and attempted unlawful coercion. The thought of suing my own parents was daunting, a complex web of residual emotion, ingrained loyalty, however twisted, and legal pragmatism. But Gabriel spoke not just about the law, but about accountability and breaking cycles. He reminded me of the violence, the years of abuse, their complete lack of remorse. He showed me the photos taken at the wedding, the blood on the floor, the chaos, the look on my father's face. It wasn't just a moment of madness. It was the culmination of decades of pathology. Signing the documents to authorize the lawsuit was one of the hardest, most empowering things I had ever done. My hand trembled slightly, but my signature was clear and firm. It was a declaration of independence, a refusal to be their victim anymore. As expected, my parents, through their legal team, fought back fiercely. They denied everything, attempting to portray me as a vindictive daughter making false accusations for financial gain. Their defense was a twisted version of reality, designed to shame and discredit me. But Gabriel was ready. We had the video evidence from multiple angles, the witness testimonies from Julian, Mason, Layla, David and Maria Whitmore, and other guests, my medical records detailing the extent of the injury, and Gabriel was prepared to present evidence of the years of emotional abuse and the financial coercion attempt. Weeks later, the day of the preliminary hearing arrived. I walked into the courthouse with Gabriel by my side, Julian a steadfast presence behind us. The building felt imposing, filled with the weight of countless stories of conflict and consequence. We entered the courtroom. It was smaller than I expected, filled with stark furniture and hushed anticipation. And there they were, Eleanor and Thomas, sitting with their lawyers, looking pale but composed. Seeing them across the room, not as the towering figures of my childhood dread, but as defendants facing judgment, was a powerful moment. My scar felt tight on my temple, a physical reminder of the path that led me here. My heart pounded, a drumbeat of anxiety, but also of purpose. This wasn't just about winning a case. It was about finally telling my story, the true story, in a place where it had to be heard. The silence in the courtroom felt charged, waiting. I was ready,